fighting in Gaza over the weekend tested the fragile ceasefire. Even so, President Trump believes the deal between Hamas and Israel will hold.
With Hamas refusing to disarm, several Middle Eastern leaders warned the president's Gaza plan is in danger of falling apart. Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem.
U.S. Envoy Steve Witkoff and White House advisor Jared Kushner arrived in Israel today to help keep the ceasefire alive. The IDF announced it resumed the ceasefire Sunday evening after Israeli forces responded to a Hamas attack that killed 2 soldiers and wounded 3 more in the southern Gaza Strip. The IDF struck dozens of Hamas terror targets. President Trump told Fox News there's not a timeline to disarm Hamas.
And at a certain point, if they don't do what they're supposed to do, then we'll have to do it for them.
Since the ceasefire, Hamas leaders have openly stated they will not disarm and want to be part of a post-war Gaza. The Trump plan says Hamas must disarm and can't have any role in Gaza after the war. Hamas is also enforcing its rule in areas where Israel has pulled back by executing its rivals, extorting local businessmen, and often displaying their weapons. Hillel Neuer, director of UN Watch, tells CBN News the world has been silent on Hamas's vigilante justice.
I put up a video a few days ago on social media, and it said, here's the reaction of the Human Rights Council to the massacre by Hamas. Hamas is accused of killing possibly over 50 Palestinians, and the response of the world is crickets. Our video is the sound of crickets.
Neuer says critics of Israel are silent too.
Groups like Amnesty International, many leading activists like Greta Thunberg, the climate Palestine activist, who claimed to care about Gaza, who claimed to care about Palestinians, have been completely silent as Hamas is murdering Palestinians.
If Hamas is allowed to keep its weapons, it may jeopardize the next phase of the ceasefire deal. The Sunni nations of Saudi Arabia and the UAE were expected to be part of an Arab force to monitor the ceasefire in Gaza. However, it's been reported they won't participate if Hamas does not lay down its weapons. Saudi Arabia and the UAE noticeably did not attend the recent peace summit in Egypt and said they warned about countries that destabilize the region, a veiled reference to Qatar that has funded Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood for decades. Many believe unless Hamas is disarmed and eliminated, it will sabotage any force sent to restore order in the Gaza Strip and block any chance for rehabilitation or reconstruction. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, Jonathan Schanzler is the executive director of the Foundation for Defense of Democracy. Jonathan, thank you for joining with us. How would you describe the current state of affairs if UAE and Saudi Arabia pull out of this peace deal? Does that just doom it?
It does doom it, and things are very fragile right now. I think the biggest problem, and this was just referenced, is the fact that the Qataris, I would probably also add the Turks, they vouched for Hamas. They brought them to the table for Donald Trump in exchange for some perks from the United States. This was the deal. Right now, it looks like they are unable to deliver their terror client. And I think this is the moment where, right now we're hearing that J.D. Vance is on his way to the region, that Jared Kushner and Stephen Witkoff are already in Israel. I think they're in the wrong place. I mean, I think the Israelis are, of course, going to celebrate the fact that these senior officials are there and they'll roll out the red carpet. But let's be clear, the action is in other places right now. The United States needs to come down on the Turks and the Qataris like a ton of bricks. This is where the leverage is for Hamas, and we need to get them back into the deal, complying with the deal. They need to pull apart their terror organization. They need to return those remaining slain hostages. That's what Donald Trump brokered. That's what we need to deliver.
How much is the Muslim Brotherhood behind this? Erdogan in Turkey's got ties to it. ISIS clearly in Syria does. Qatar has been funding them for decades. So is the underlying ideology to continue to support this violence against Israel?
Yes. I mean, in a word, yes. The Qataris and the Turks, we refer to them now as the axis of the Muslim Brotherhood. The Qataris are the funders. The Turks are the muscle behind all of this. They have an ideology that they want to promote, whether it be through Hamas, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, or other Sunni jihadi groups. This is their goal. And it's for this reason that we see the Saudis and the Emiratis, maybe the Egyptians, the Bahrainis, the other moderate Arab states in the Middle East. They don't want any part of this right now, so long as the Qataris and the Turks are involved. This is the mess, unfortunately, that the Trump administration has gotten itself into. I fully commend the president for having brokered what he's been able to broker, and I think he is actively trying to make the Middle East a better place. But relying on these two countries in particular, the Qataris and the Turks, is not a recipe for success, and that's what we need to try to untangle right now.
Well, I certainly applaud him for getting the hostages home. That was a wonderful piece of diplomacy. But I don't think he's under any illusions about Qatar. Back in 2017, in his first administration, he identified them as the prime funder of terrorism in the Middle East. What has changed? Because in the press, it's sort of, okay, Qatar's going to give him a 747, and we're going to have some kind of Air Force training base in Idaho. Is he thinking that somehow he can make a deal with someone whose ideology is absolutely opposed to peace?
Look, I don't have access to the president's brain, so I don't know exactly what he's thinking. But I mean, one gets a sense that he thinks he can co-opt this terror sponsoring state. And just to be clear, I mean, this is a country, it's not even really a country, it's a micro state of 330,000 citizens that controls something like 12% of the world's energy. They have enormous wealth that I think the president wishes to leverage. And we see massive investments, billions and billions of dollars flooding into the United States in different ways. And on the one hand, this helps our economy. On the other hand, one does get a sense that the Qataris are able to capture certain elements of power in this country. We need to figure out how to balance all of that and to leverage them to bring about the foreign policy outcomes that we're looking for. And I think we haven't quite found that solution yet. That equation is still being worked on. It's not to say that it's impossible for the president to do this, but I think we still have some challenges ahead.
Is the whole goal of Hamas just to slow roll disarmament in a hope the world sort of looks away, and then at the end of the day, literally challenge the IDF to come back in? Is that sort of their end game?
Look, I think people keep asking, why is Hamas not disarming? This is a terrorist organization that's been around since 1988. They don't want to disarm. They don't want to dismantle themselves. They want to stay in power. They control Gaza, or at least they did. Now they control a part of Gaza, but they don't want to relinquish that power. And I think that's very clear. They also exist to destroy the state of Israel. And they're not done trying to do that, even as I think they're fully defeated. So, yeah, I think their goal right now is to try to retain some power and to be able to continue to attack Israel and to keep the region at war. Because the longer the region's at war, the more unstable it is, and maybe the more at risk Israel becomes. I mean, I think we need to understand that the Israelis have battled back and they have the upper hand now on 7 different fronts, where at one point it was a lot dicier. They are now in control on all 7 fronts, but the longer this war rages, the more isolated Israel becomes diplomatically, the more frustration builds in the United States or in Europe or in the Middle East. That looks like Hamas's goal right now, in addition to just trying to snipe as many Israeli soldiers and to kill as many Israelis as possible. I think their mission is doomed, but that doesn't mean that they can't bring down the Middle East with them if they drag this out longer.
Just brief comment on the public relations war. It just seems to be an incredible double standard that, we have to protect the children of Gaza, and the IDF has to withdraw. The IDF withdraws, and now Hamas is killing its own people. Why the double standard, and why isn't the world rising up to condemn Hamas for this?
I got to say, the hypocrisy is just maddening. I have to note that the entire ceasefire now crowd, I'm talking about the Europeans, I'm talking about the UN, I'm talking about Hollywood, they were all out there screaming for Israel to end the war. Israel is abiding by the ceasefire. Hamas is murdering women and children and innocents on the streets because Gazans are just simply opposing their rule, and it's been utter silence. And it is absolutely shameful to see that silence, however, not surprising. So yeah, a huge double standard. The hypocrisy is glaring, but that should tell you a lot about those that have been excoriating Israel for the last 2 years for the crime of defending itself.
Well, Jonathan, thanks for your insight, and thanks for all you do at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. It seems like democracy is under attack all across the world, and thanks for all that you do and all that you do to help Israel.